welcome to your capital. It's, I was telling somebody the other day, we were up here the other 9 months every day, and it's real quiet and not anything going on. And all of a sudden, the first Tuesday, all of my friendly lobbyists show up, you know. I love you guys. How are your families? You know, it's good to have you back in the Capitol and everybody else. So it's a special time. We're in our second day, and we just finished our second day. We had the opportunity to speak yesterday, Speaker and I did, to the board, so I don't want to replicate some of those that were in there. We have, as you know, been working hard on various and sundry things. MFLEX is going great, which is our business incentives part. That's doing really well all over. On this AWS, that was one of the moving factors for them to come here. So we're doing well, I think, on that. It's about time to start looking at our business incentives back again. We'll start doing that this year. On taxes, we've been lowering taxes and eliminating the income tax, and I saw we're down to 4.4, and somebody's trying to get less than we are, and we're getting less and less, and we'll go down again this year and next year, and the next year you'll see some proposals from us to continue the elimination of the income tax in a gradual, fiscally responsible way. We still got to pay teachers and highway patrol and judiciary and those kinds of things. I have an interest in paying down the grocery tax. You'll see that come out of the Senate this year. We have the highest grocery tax in the country, and that's not acceptable. It is acceptable to have a balanced tax program. All of you, I think, would realize that you have to have a balance. You don't want to have too much in one way or another. To date, we're about $108 million below budget for this year. Our budget was $7.6 billion, and we actually expended in our budget. Our expenses were about $7 billion. We cut our budget back this year, and our legislative budget office is chaired by the Speaker and myself. So we cut our budget back some. We're behind on the collections this year, mainly from corporate income tax. So all of you that are in corporations, there's going to be a small bucket out. So if you would put your check in that bucket, you could bring us back even. I really appreciate that. I look at this as kind of a yellow blinking light, that we need to be fiscally responsible. There are times in which we have aberrations, like hopefully the corporate tax is, but some of that's generated, y'all, by the fact that we passed legislation to allow you to expense your capital improvements. And obviously when you expense them this year, you won't get your depreciation for next year. So there is some aberration, there is some reason there's a flight to LLCs by individuals because they don't want the dual taxation. LLCs, when we rewrote it as Secretary of State, I think we got down to 46,000. There are hundreds of thousands of them operating in Mississippi, so they're pass-through entities, and so we're not getting the corporate tax from those. But even that doesn't explain, you know, $130 million difference in our corporate tax. And visiting with the head of the Department of Revenue over there, Chris Graham, the other day about this, we don't have an absolute answer for that issue. So we're looking at that. Real important on infrastructure. The legislature, the House and the Senate, when we started in 2020, we were spending $1.1 billion on infrastructure. This last year was $2.2 billion. So where you see all those orange barrels and everything, it's $1.1 billion and ever been spent on infrastructure was being spent by the legislature in these years. That's a critical part, and you're seeing them, the barrels and everything else you're seeing are spread all over the state, and I'm very pleased that we're doing the infrastructure part. We still have the emergency road and bridge for our local counties. Those kinds of things are still going on, so that's good. We passed a bill that y'all can get a 50% tax credit for child care. I'm hopeful that you will use that. Our barriers, as we look at our labor force participation rate, which is low, it's 54.5%. We need to have it up closer to 60. The nation runs about 62%. That's 50 or 100,000 more people that would be working. A lot of those barriers to interest are child care. So when we passed our statute, we got a 50% tax credit. And as you know, you can write a check on the Treasury. Credit for you, and we're very hopeful that MEC and the members will utilize that credit and also their own expenditure to make sure that moms can get a place to leave their children and come to work. We think that's really important. We do have a really aggressive proposals this year. There are two things, and I'll wrap up. The first is this PERS problem. Now, everybody in here has a 401k probably. The state didn't do that. Under Democratic administration, they passed a retirement plan that included a 3% compounded COLA. And that 3% compounded COLA has generated a $25 billion deficit in our pension plan. So the LBO, the Legislative Budget Office, and we hired another actuary. The legislature required them to hire 2 more actuaries, so there were 4. We had 4 actuaries, and we worked with them the last year in looking at a new retirement plan for employees. Those will matriculate and was passed last week, that the trustees passed a bill that said, passed a resolution that said that they would do a hybrid, which is a part defined benefit, part 401k plan for employees. It will cost us about 9% versus the 19.9 that we're paying now. The difference will go to pay for the current retirees and employees that are working here and in counties and cities and education around Mississippi. It'll take us probably 25 years to bail ourselves out of it. The legislature, by going to 19.5%, is increasing its funding by about $300 million a year to have that happen. But we had a commitment to our employees and our retirees, and we're going to be able to honor that commitment. This is a breakthrough in Mississippi. If any of your companies had a $25 billion pension deficit, you probably wouldn't be sitting here. You'd be working on something else. So I'm real pleased the leadership from the trustees and the leadership from Legislative Budget Office is allowing us to stop the bleeding and start with a new plan for all new employees that will be hired after July the 1st. So I'm really excited about that part, and we're looking forward to having that completed. We have some issues, and the 2 issues I'll bring to your attention real quick, and we'll get to the speaker and the other speakers. Our agricultural system is struggling, y'all, more than it ever has. And you'll see it in the Delta this year. Our cost of inputs, our soybean prices are $9.50 or $9.75. The cost to input them in the ground is $12. You'll see some untilled soil in Mississippi for the first time probably since the 60s, when the government started paying people to clear land to make soybean fields. That is a worldwide issue, and it's not going to go away this year. Mississippi Farm Bureau took the initiative. They got $10 billion from Congress to pay out up to $250,000 to our farmers. That is not going to be sufficient long term. So our bankers are struggling with whether or not to furnish. Our farmers are struggling with whether or not to plant. And by the way, we get $8.7 billion in our agricultural community. They employ 17% of all employees in Mississippi. So we will have to address on some kind of fashion the agricultural slump that we're going to be here, and it is not short term. So it will be a longer term method. You can see what's happening in Brazil and what the Chinese are doing down there. They've cleared enough land, as the same as Iowa, Illinois, and Indiana put together. So this is not a short-term issue, and it's a longer-term issue for what is our #1 producer in Mississippi, has for years, maybe the Agricultural Department. So we're excited about dealing with that. As you know, Nissan's merging with Honda, and we want to make sure that we're the #1 company for here. That factory's been there 30 years, and it's been a leader. There are about 7 Tier 1 suppliers located around it, so it's thousands of employees. We do a good job. We're a non-unionized plant. It's been very efficient, so we're real hopeful that that will continue on as well. But the other last thing I want to tell you is AWS is not a $10 million project. It's about a $25 billion project. I met with the operations manager, Dwayne Walker, the other day. We had a good visit. We went out to Jackson State to recruit engineers to go to work out there. And in the course of that conversation, I said, you know, you're spending $25 billion, you know, kind of, how's it going? And we got tenants, we got enough people, or where are we? And he said, oh no, we're fully utilized. We don't have any more space in those 2 buildings. So my first comment was, okay, where are we going to build the next one? We're only limited by our energy generation, which energy is building 2 new plants. So that factory, that he told me when they came down here up in the Capitol just last week, the head of all their government relations said, in the entire country, we have to wait on contractors and on people to do their job. There's only one place that the contractors are waiting on Amazon, and that's in Madison County. They're ahead. Our energy, our water, all the things that we promised them, our economic benefits, all the training, the things that we promised, we're actually ahead of Amazon. And I said, you go tell that to everybody that you run into in the whole world, that this is a place to come build a factory because our people work and we get our stuff done on time and we honor our promises. So, very prosperous. Year's looking good. We've got a couple of challenges I mentioned to you, but the state's never been in a position where we are actually paying off debt, we're lowering taxes, and we're educating our children, and we're building our infrastructure. Since 1817, it hadn't been like this. So a lot of people standing here and a lot of people upstairs have had a lot to do with that, but we're in a great shape. And so enjoy yourselves, and your corporate people, y'all make sure you get your money in. Thank y'all very much.